when that newer season of Twin Peaks came out a couple years ago, and Matthew Lillard like was in the first couple episodes, like he was framed for his wife's murder or whatever, and he was like breaking down like in the interrogation room. It's like I just think of him as Shaggy, like I didn't do it, man. We were gonna go scuba diving.
That's really good. That's really good. Speaking of great voices, today we're talking about it.
That's right. We're going to be talking about.
What'd you think of Invincible?
No, it was pretty damn great, actually. Like, as my third superhero show of 2021 already, it's not even May. I'd say it's the best already.
I think so too. Yeah, of the three that I've also watched, being WandaVision, Falcon Winter Soldier, and this. Yeah.
Yeah. Winter Vision and Wanda Soldier.
Yeah. And it's funny, man. Like, I went into this show, you know, I ordered something on Amazon, and they're like, hey, you want a free month of Prime? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And then I'm like, what's on Prime? I'm like, what's this fucking Invincible show? I'm like, J.K. Simmons, Stephen Yeun. Yeah. Like, what the hell? And like the first 5 episodes were out at this point. So I just like binged those 5 episodes, and I was just like, holy shit. This is really good stuff.
Yeah, like I had heard about the comics like for years that they were like really good, and just like me, it's harder for me to get into comics. I was like, oh, that's a thing that's apparently really good that I should check out sometime. And then like, oh, they've been trying to make a movie out of it for years, or like a live action show, and then this animated one just shows up, and I'm like, oh, that looks like something I should check out. Then I saw clips from the first episode and people raving about it. Like, yeah, too bad I don't have Prime anymore. And then hearing your word of mouth of how great it is, like, okay, I got to check it out. It's high time I do.
I have been gushing about this show. I love it. And I've heard, you know, because, okay, the first episode, right? That's kind of the hook, right? That's the one that's, you're either gonna like be like, what, or you're gonna be like, okay.
Yeah.
And to me, it's more than just gore. A lot of people are like, that this show is just gore. It's just bloodiness, and it's not. It's not just that, because they tell a pretty compelling story in that first episode for a good 40 minutes before the gore stuff happens at the end.
Yeah, and the gore stuff isn't really like, well, it is gratuitous in the sense that there's a lot of it, but it's not gratuitous like, oh, like look at all the blood and guts, dude, like a Tarantino movie. Like, oh, it's just cool and fun. Like, it's people suffering. Like, it's real intense shit. It shows it to show the gravity of the situations.
Yeah, and it is a little gratuitous, but it's also like, it's gratuitous because that's kind of how it would probably look, you know?
Yeah.
But that's also the thing with this show, because I do think this show is probably going to get compared to The Boys a lot. And
yeah.
But like, you know, The Boys is like, I'd say more grounded. And this feels like a comic book to me.
Yeah.
Like, it's still kind of, you know, heightened reality. You know, this is definitely still like Justice League-esque. It's just a bit more, there's a lot more consequences in this show.
Like, I haven't seen any of The Boys, like hardly any of The Boys, but kind of from what I've seen of The Boys and what I've watched of Invincible, it seems like Invincible's more about bringing our reality into comics, while The Boys is more like bringing comics into our reality.
That's a really great way of putting it, yeah.
Because like, I know, like, isn't like the first scene of The Boys like someone going through super speed and just like grinding someone up on accident?
Yeah.
Like, Invincible, it kind of eases you into like the meat grinder stuff.
Yeah, and you know, I'll be honest, like in the first episode, I was expecting some of that Boys shit in that episode, and it totally did not happen. Like,
it sounded sorry, it sounded like you said bullshit, but with like an accent. Oh, it's full of boy shit.
It's just that boy shit. No, I was expecting some stuff like The Boys in that first episode when he learns to fly and shit. When the plane comes, I'm like, oh, he's gonna hit that plane, he's gonna kill all those people, but that doesn't happen because this show is still a comic book, like and it still does that. But then, like, when people do die, it makes you feel it more when people do die because of that. And there's a lot of death.
There's a lot of death. Like, I watched last episode just yesterday, and just still, like, holy hell.
Yeah, I mean, let's get into it. Like, the show starts. This is a spoiler cast, so get used to it, friendos. The show starts out with our good buddy, not Dick Grayson, Mark Grayson.
Yes.
He's just like your average kid, but his dad is Superman. And, it's that coming of age, like, it's like Spider-Man figuring out he has powers or whatever.
Yes, to be like a coming of age, like to become the hero that his dad is. His dad's like the wonderful Superman figure, like with that legacy and that responsibility.
It's Sky High, essentially.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it's Sky High for that first episode, and you're like, oh, okay, so that's what this show is. And then that episode ends, and it cuts to like our Justice League. They're called the Guardians of the Globe, and Omni-Man, which is Superman, just fucking murders all of them.
Yeah.
What was your reaction to that?
Like, I'd seen that clip before I had watched the episode because it was like posted everywhere on a lot of animation Twitter I follow. But like, I was like, but still, it was like, holy hell! Like, this is horrifying. Like, actually,
because I went into it completely blind. Like, I knew nothing about it. I kind of knew about the Invincible comics, but like, just sort of in passing. I read some Savage Dragon comics back in the day, which I guess Savage Dragon is part of the same universe, but I didn't know that. I just like Savage Dragon because he's a big lizard man. And he's goofy, and he wears like a police uniform sometimes. So I like Savage Dragon. But so like I read some Savage Dragon, but yeah, I didn't know anything about Invincible. So I go into the show completely blind. I saw like a YouTube ad or maybe it was a Facebook ad where it's that scene where they're flying through the air, and it's J.K. Simmons, Stephen Yeun, or Omni-Man and Mark, and they're flying through the air. And he's giving the speech about like it's like trying to pee your pants. It's hard to do. And I watched that little clip and I'm like, oh, I'll check this show out. That seems interesting,
Yeah.
And as I was watching it, I'm like, oh, it's Justice League, but they can bleed a little bit. Okay, like because like there's just like a little bit of blood. You see the clones and and there's just like a little bit of blood that comes out, and you're like, okay, so it's superheroes, but with like it's a little bit edgier. And then that ending happens, and you just see like an eyeball pop out, and you're like, Omni-Man is bad, and he just, dude, and he murks all of them. It's insane,
like without a word.
Yeah, and then the episode just ends. And the greatest thing I think in this show, the greatest thing they did in this show is that happens, and the next episode they make you forget, and like. It's so geniusly done because it's just like he's just hanging out with his dad again, and you're just like, that's his dad. You don't even think about it. You're just like, oh yeah, it's just Omni-Man being Omni-Man, and then you're like, he can't be bad, can he?
He can't be all bad. Like he's given Mark the lessons he needs in that second episode, like what the audience needs Mark to have.
Yeah. And we get to see, in the first episode, actually, we see him get his suit, which the suit guy, I forget his name. Do you remember his name? The guy who makes the suits?
His name's Mark Hamill.
Yeah, he's played by Mark Hamill. Yeah. And I really liked, dude, that's the thing about this show. There's a lot of characters in this show, and you understand all of them. Like, they all feel like unique, well-built, well-developed characters, like all of them, even just the suit guy. Like,
yeah,
you like relate to him, and you're like, I get this guy, like it's insane.
Like he's like a blue collar guy, like working this job for like this very distinguished job making all these suits for all these heroes. It's a very celebrated job, but like, he's still like grassroots. Like he maintains like friendships with all these people.
Well, specifically,
and,
like
and,
in
like
that,
he loves what he does.
in that last episode where it's, you know, you see him looking at the picture of him and Omni-Man, and this is like after Omni-Man has committed all these atrocities, and he's just like, God damn. And then Mark's mom, who's played by Sandra Oh, comes in, and they just like have this moment together, and you're just like, man, they nail it. They just nail this show. I loved it. Any thoughts?
So I'd say we talk about the voice acting in the show.
Yeah, for sure.
Because the thing that caught my eye with the ads for it was like just pulling off like all these lists of all these people doing voices and everything, and like some of them are like have done animation before, and some of them like are established voices, like Kevin Michael Richardson and
Jason Mantzoukas,
Justin Roiland and everybody. And like J.K. Simmons too, like he's done voices like millions of times, and he's always great at it.
Yeah, and there's also some of them, like J.K. Simmons and Zazie Beetz, are like not new to the superhero realm either. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because Zazie Beetz plays Amber. How do you feel about Amber? We'll get back to the voice actors though, but how do you feel about Amber?
Oh, okay. I don't know. How do you feel about Amber?
Okay, so I see a lot of people being like, yeah, Mark was a bad boyfriend, and I'm just like, nah, dude, Amber is, he's a superhero guy, and you know this. You gotta be like, yeah, he's a superhero, you know?
No, I do like the part where he's like, oh, I'm invincible. Like, I know, like, there's a lot for you to take in, but like, that's why I'm always late. And she's like, I don't care. Like, you still lied about it. Like, that's a good,
yeah. And she's like, I knew.
Story hit. Yeah.
Yeah, but also it's like,
hit.
also it's like, come on. Like, you should be able to understand. Like, come on. Amber, get over yourself. Come on. I don't know. Anyway, voice actors. I thought Zazie Beetz was great though. She's really good in that role. And her in that role makes me care about that character more than I ought to. Right? Because on paper she's just, the high school girlfriend. But since she's played by Zazie Beetz and her character is so well developed, you kind of are like, yeah, kind of rooting for them a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah.
But then there's that weird sort of like love triangle between her and Adam Eve, who's played by Gillian Jacobs, who I love. I think she's great in everything I've seen her in. Of course, Community, and I've seen her in some other stuff like Love. I love that show. I love Love.
Yeah. But see, I like Mark, but it's when it's like the boyfriend stuff, the love triangle stuff, that it more so comes out that he's kind of a dweeb, like kind of like bouncing on the line between like it's likable and relatable dweeb, and also like, come
just
on,
annoying.
Like be a better boyfriend. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually said this to one of our friends. I love Steven Yeun. I love him as an actor, but I wasn't feeling him as Invincible because, and maybe, and I don't think it's necessarily even his fault. Just like the character was just like, he just complained a lot and he just seemed a little whiny. But it was really that last episode that I'm like, damn, Steven Yeun like brought it on that episode. Where you really felt it, and I feel like without Steven Yeun in that role, you wouldn't have felt it as much, because his performance in that last, and J.K. Simmons' performance in that last episode specifically, were it was top-notch voice acting. Seriously.
Yeah, J.K. Simmons, like with this, like he's still maintaining the title of like my favorite working actor today. Like anything he's in, like he's just always wonderful.
Yeah, he's really good. Who else is in this show? Jason Mantzoukas, I really, really like.
Who? Oh, he was Rexplode.
Rexplode. And also, if you notice, when and that's the weird thing with Robot as well. Robot like turns into this child randomly, which was kind of maybe the weirdest thing. We could get into that in a second, but if you notice that child, it's the DNA of Rex. That is Jason Mantzoukas' voice.
See, that's what
that's totally his voice.
Like, it sounded like it, like more like a younger sounding. It was digitally, or like he acted younger, but it was like a different character because he was Rudy then. He wasn't Rexplode. Which
is weird because I've never heard him do a different voice besides his voice. He's very much like H. John Benjamin in that way, where he kind of has that same voice in everything he does.
But it's such a good voice that you just want to hear it in things.
Yeah.
Can he show up in Invincible season 2 or 3? John Benjamin?
Dude, that'd be great. I love him in everything too. Everything he's in, he's great. Who
else? Yeah, so the more established voice actors, Grey Griffin, she was some voices here and there, but she was mostly Monster Girl. And she was really good. She was really, really good.
Yeah, I hope in season 2, which just got announced, season 2 and 3 just got announced, I hope we get to see that developed a bit more.
Monster Girl and Rudy Robot.
Yeah, because I felt like maybe they were... It was very compelling, but it felt a little like rushed, almost like wait, what? Like and from what I hear, one of the biggest changes from this to the comic books is that whole story arc with Robot happens much later in the comics.
Okay.
So I feel like maybe they thought, well, that we may only have one season. So we
really want to do this story.
Yeah, we really want to do the stuff with the the clones and Robot. So it did feel a little rushed, I thought. Just because, like, he shows up, right, as Rudy, as the kid, and everyone's just sort of like, oh, okay. and that's never really explored again. They don't really talk about it again. He definitely broke those dudes out of prison, and it's just sort of like, well, okay. And like him and Monster Girl are just like holding hands now, which, the implications of that are weird in and of itself.
Yeah. But they could have been a lot weirder. But anyway. See, like, yeah, now hearing you say that stuff with Robot, like going into Rudy, like that happened supposedly later in the comics, like it kind of filled out a lot of time in this season that, like, it didn't really amount to anything come the season finale. Just like, oh, like he's Rudy now. Like, okay. Like, it didn't really tie itself exactly to the story at hand with like Mark and Omni-Man.
Yeah, it definitely felt sidelined to that whole thing. But there were other like storylines that were also kind of sidelined to the whole Omni-Man thing as well, because they told a lot of different like stories that haven't been concluded yet, like the Stone guy, who's played by Mahershala Ali, who's a fantastic actor as well, and he's great in this show too. And they kind of just set it up like he's like the new kingpin, I guess, of whatever city they're in.
Over Machine Head, who I just really liked hearing him talk. Like, I know where your family lives.
Yeah, I liked Machine Head a lot.
But I think all the stuff we're talking about with Mahershala and Rudy Monster Girl thing, it's really just the shape of the machine now in terms of like wanting to get your show more seasons in the world of streaming, where you like plant these story seeds so that it's a good argument for both the show itself and for fan response to convince like your streaming service or your network to give you more seasons, because we're just hearing now that they got renewed for season 2 and 3. So they weren't sure of that until recently, I guess. So that was really them like putting their chips down, like, oh, like there's going to be a demand for the show to continue. So we're going to put in these story beats that are just left hanging to set a precedent to warrant us getting more seasons.
Yeah, definitely. But like even throughout the show, which a lot of the storylines ended up leading back to Omni-Man. But like throughout the show, there was sort of, a lot of shows do, like Rick and Morty is a great example where they do an A and a B plot every episode. That's what they do. This show had like
classic like TV like script writing.
Yeah, this show had like A, B, C, D, E, F plots going on, where it's like we have
like Mark's story, and for a while it was like Cecil's story, and like Damien Darkblood or whatever his name was.
Played by Clancy Brown.
Yeah, fuck yeah, Clancy Brown.
I love Clancy Brown. He's so good, Mr. Krabs.
So you got like the Grayson family stuff, and like the whole.
Oh! You've turned robotic.
Investigation.
You've turned robotic.
Adam, Eve, and Rick explode their whole story, like forming the Guardians of the Globe. Well, you turn. Oh wait, no, you're good.
Are you good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, we're back. Yeah, I heard a little bit of that, and it was really weird because it like sped up. And yeah.
Can you hear me now?
It was back to the A B C D E F thing. Yeah, because it was doing like the Damien Darkblood stuff and like what's going on with Cecil, but then it also had like just like Mark going to high school stuff, and like Mark and Eve, and then Mark and Amber, and then Mark going off to college and like looking at this college, and there's this like weird subplot going on there. But at the same time that's happening, his mom is sort of finding out that Omni-Man killed the Guardians of the Globe. Like this whole show had like a million different things going on, but every time, because like when you watch a show and that sort of thing is happening, there's always a moment where like it goes from one really compelling story to like the B plot, and you're like, I just don't care as much. I never felt that in this show. Every time it went to a different,
all the stories were compelling.
Yeah, I was just like, what is going on with the clones right now? What are they up to? And yeah, I think this show just strives on really strong characters.
See, like the way it's kind of the reverse of a lot of animated shows recently, where that like try to connect together in some like big overarching story. Where it's different here because this is a longer episode format. It's like 45 minutes, where it's like an issue or like monster of the week, where it's like a villain of the week for that episode, and then kind of the B plot or in the background is like the overarching stuff. While for Invincible, it's a lot of the overarching stuff is in the forefront, and then like the monster of the week is like in the B plot. So like you got the stuff like the volcano gloves guy, or like the guy who turned people into cyborgs at the college and everything,
or the aliens.
Yeah,
that Omni-Man
just to Mars. Yeah.
And Omni-Man just like goes in there and murks all of those aliens, and you're just like, oh shit.
Yeah, I rewatched that clip earlier, and he's like you don't understand this. Like, Earth is not yours to conquer. Which now hearing that, like, it makes sense, because at first you think like, oh, it's not yours to conquer. It's not anyone's to conquer. But he's like, no, it's mine to conquer.
I kind of picked up on that. I feel like that was a pretty like obvious. Like obviously Omni-Man, because Omni-Man is basically it's basically Goku from Dragon Ball, because because in Dragon Ball Goku is sent here to take over Earth, but then he hits his head and is basically dumb now and doesn't know how to take over Earth. What about?
Oh, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna bring up the animation.
Okay.
How'd you are an animator of sorts.
Yeah.
So
Emphasis on of sorts, but like
um,
the animation is good. Like
yeah,
by and large, it's pretty good. Like standard animation you'd see from like DC, like straight to video stuff nowadays, or like Young Justice kind of shows, or even like what they're streaming now on HBO Max. But there's some parts where, like, there's one episode where, sorry, I'm kind of all over the place. I'm thinking about it right now.
that's the hard thing about doing a full season review versus just an episode
Right.
review.
Yeah. But anyway, like Invincible's one of those animated shows that it's meant more so to showcase its writing than it is its animation. Not that the animation is bad. It's just the show's not really about its animation. It's more about its script and how animation can tell it. Because like there wasn't a whole lot of points where like the animation wowed me. Like it was really cool. It was good animation for sure. It did what it needed to do. But there's stuff that's like, oh, there's kind of awkward looking CGI like crowd shots when like running away from terror. And there's even parts where like the main characters, like center of the shot, you can tell were kind of CG'd, but like made to look 2D.
Yeah, and like a lot of the flying shots are just sort of like still images.
Yeah, exactly.
And I do feel like a lot of that is maybe a budget thing. Maybe they didn't have like the biggest budget, and a lot of their budget probably went to that cast.
Yeah.
And I think it's okay because, like you said, it's definitely more focused on its story. Because like
And
there are a lot of scenes like where it's, you know, Mark, his mom, and his dad like standing in the living room, and it's just sort of like they're just sort of standing there, and their mouths are just going up, you know, and that's fine, you know. That's fine. You got good dialogue there. You don't need to be flashy. Save your money there. And then like when there are really kick-ass fight scenes, I think they're totally serviceable and really good. Like,
yeah,
I think the whole last episode is really good.
Yeah.
You know, the whole last episode is basically them just like blowing their load, and you know. Omni-Man is bad guy. He's evil. He's evil Superman. He throws Mark through a building, kills all these people, and like, you know, they do a really good job of showing it visually, you know.
Yeah.
So
See, for me, it's one of those things where Invincible's one of those things where it's like it's kind of pick your poison and what you look for in mostly in TV animation. Where if you like really simple, like simplistic designs, but they allow them to be animated very fluidly, or like more complex, like touched up designs, but more limited movement or like limited amount of poses.
Right. And this one, I you know, I've went and looked at some of the comics and stuff now in hindsight. And the character designs look pretty much exactly like the comics and stuff.
Right.
So like they didn't change too much. Obviously, like they changed Amber completely, but like for the most part, like, you know, Omni-Man in the show and Omni-Man in the book, it's the same character design. So like they were able to nail that sort of imagery pretty well. I just think that like I think this show was maybe Robert Kirkman was like, I want to make an Invincible show. I want it to be animated. And I think Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg were like, we fucking love Invincible. We'll help you with this shit. And Amazon's like, okay, we'll give you like, you know, this budget here, small budget.
Yeah.
If it's successful, you can have more seasons and maybe a bigger budget. But
which, thinking about it now, that this is like a Seth Rogen production, like not to get all like political or anything, but like I really hope that they were able to get an animation house that was better staffed and like treated its staff better than fucking Sausage Party.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's something
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about. Something to look into for sure. Yeah, because that was inevitably really shitty. I don't know. I don't think like I'd have to guess that like Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg weren't like a huge part of this show as far as creative and or anything like that. I think they're just fans and they're like, yeah, we'll back it.
Yeah, for sure.
And obviously Seth shows up in a couple episodes.
And I really liked him.
Yeah, I like him a lot too. And not to get too spoilery, I went and saw just the covers of some future Invincible, and they have a lot of story to tell. There's a lot. I saw some of the covers and I'm just like, holy shit! And I think Seth Rogen's character becomes a much bigger part of the show in the future, which makes a lot of sense. I think there's going to be a lot more intergalactic sort of shit in the future.
Yeah,
I think they move on.
There really has to be.
Yeah, I think they move on from like Omni-Man being the big bad into something else, without saying too much.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm excited.
Let's talk about Omni-Man. Actually,
yeah.
Like easily my favorite character, like out of the whole series, like out of the whole season. Great character, perfect asshole.
Yeah, he but like he's very dynamic though.
Yeah.
And I think like that last episode shows I think there's a lot going on up there more than just like I want to kill everyone and take over the planet.
Yeah, he's not like exactly like a big bad. Like he is a big bad, he's like a really like oppressive threat, but like he's not exactly like he thinks he's A, B, and C, but like it's deeper than that. Like there, he has more to fight with inside himself.
To me, he seems like a guy who wants to do the right thing and thinks he's doing the right thing. And I can only get this from the last episode because the other genius of this show is it's not a whodunit, but a whydunit. And I really love that. Really love that. But like, from the last episode, he kind of explains like, no, we conquer worlds because we want to make them better places. And the lifespan of this person, it's inconsequential to us. But I think like him living on Earth and being around humans and being with Sandra Oh has whose character's name I can't remember. Debbie. Yeah. I think has kind of opened his eyes to some stuff, but he's still part of that system. Because I think that's why he ends up leaving at the end, because he's like, fuck, man, I think I'm wrong.
And they're like, Ultramite never has left his post. Like, that's insane. No one does that.
And it shows that little scene of him at the baseball game where it shows him like rooting for Mark. And he's like finally understanding the meaning of life is more than just conquering worlds and being the strongest. It's about living,
Yeah, and him being a dynamic character, like even before that last episode when they were still like uncovering that like he was a bad guy and that like he's seen them like pathetic and like not helping them like when they were fighting like that big group of villains. Like even when like you saw that he had ulterior motives, like he was still a dynamic character. Like I couldn't help but be engaged with him and like at times like him, even though I know he's doing these horrible things and we don't know why yet. And I kind of wrote something down here, like really my only note, like in prep for this podcast about I was musing on this too about Omni-Man and the kind of character he is and what characters like him like mean in hero stories. If I can read off for a second.
Yeah.
Let me see. Villains and characters like Omni-Man or like Thanos challenge us to face our most grim truths and irrefutably bleak realities. Stuff like the frailty of life on Earth and the follies of man, and that the collective human experience is just as apathetic as it is hateful. Like, we wage wars on each other, and like we have finite resources we're eating up. Like, it's a lot of the same stuff that Thanos like was trying to fight. That like, oh, like how they did on Viltrum, that they wiped out half their planet, and then the best and brightest were able to stand up.
Which is some Nazi shit too, by the way.
Yes.
That is some Nazi shit, son.
Yes, it is. And even like going to conquer these planets to make them better, that's fucking hella colonialist. But anyway.
Yeah.
These characters serve as either agents of these darknesses or extreme quote unquote final solutions to them. So yeah, Nazi as hell. Like, it is the job of a hero in hero stories to not disprove these realities, but to show that a better world is possible, and that if one is willing to fight for it. Which, that's what I got out of Mark fighting in that last episode. That like, his dad, Omni-Man, is like yelling at him all these like truths about everything, about like how their lifespan, like human lifespan, is just a speck in like the grander picture. But he's still fighting for their rights for human life, and that like our time is valuable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's also, I wonder what's going to happen with Omni-Man in the future, like in the future seasons, because like I do think Omni-Man is just a cog in that machine, in that Viltrum machine, right? He's just a small part.
He was born into it.
Right. And it's like, you can't necessarily, just like, you know, just to bring it back to Nazi shit, you can't necessarily blame all of the people who were part of the Nazi movement. They were just, you know, part of that system. They were born into it and they were brought up. You have to blame the system, right? So it's going to be this interesting thing, I think, in the future where, you know, maybe Omni-Man pulls a Vegeta or something in the future.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Mm-hmm. See, kind of a random thing that's completely off topic now. Like, I saw that Justin Roiland was going to be in the show, and I was keeping an ear out for what kind of his like handful of voices he does, like on Rick and Morty and other places, would be in here. In that first episode where he's like the trust fund frat boy, kind of doing not so much anyone from Rick and Morty, but like one of the dudes from Solar Opposites, which I've only seen the first season. That show's funny though. Like, it's more of his like deep, like just more of his real voice. Right.
But it's still like, it's still ridiculous. Yeah, it was so funny hearing him like do that frat boy voice, but you're just like, man, he's just fucking Morty. He's trying so hard to be something else, but he's still just like, oh, hey, how's it going? It's just like, you're fucking just oh, jeez, Rick.
Don't be a baby.
I can hear you, but your face is frozen. But it's frozen in a very nice smile, so it's all good.
You see me now?
No.
Shit.
This is like those fucking Sprint commercials. Can you hear me now? Only with seeing you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. This show, the main focus was really Omni-Man, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You know who else I really, really liked in the show? Who maybe, from what I've seen, isn't talked about enough, is the character of Cecil, who's played by Walter Goggins. And he does a great job as Cecil, man. Because, like, Cecil is, I guess he's sort of the Nick Fury of this universe, right? Yeah,
like the Nick Fury, or like the very grizzled, like, political liaison between, like, the government and, like, the world of the superheroes.
Yeah. And there's a few moments where I'm like, I don't know if I trust Cecil. But then he always comes around, and by the end of it, I'm just like, man, I think Cecil is like the best of us, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because there's that moment where he's like, this is why I've always hated you, Cecil. And Cecil's like, this is why I hate myself too. Because he's like, it sucks we have to do this. Like, Mark may die, but like that's what we have to do to save the rest of the planet.
Or like, you didn't let my mom hear all that shit that my dad was saying about her being a pet. Like, oh no, she was owed that much truth.
Yeah. It's like your mom deserved that. He's making the big decisions, he's the big decisions guy. But at the same time, he also sent Damien Darkblood to hell, which was weird. And a little sketchy, and maybe we'll see some ramifications of that in the future. Because he is playing some stuff pretty fast and loose, like some pretty shady business, like working with the guy who made the brain guys, and like just sort of working with him. Yeah. And at the end they're like just like giving each other a thumbs up, and like it's kind of weird. It's kind of weird. It's a little shady.
Playing with whatever hands he's given.
Yeah.
Hoping that they don't collide.
Yeah, and also just like having these like these units that are invisible, and they just kind of are always around, always looking at you, and that's a little shady. That's not super cool.
And then the whole thing about like, oh, this room uses a kind of light that Americans can't see because they drink the fluoride in the tap water.
Yeah, that's some weird shit. But Mark is just like, oh, that's cool. that ending of the show I thought was a little weird. I felt like Mark was just sort of like, we're just hanging with friends now, we're good. Or he goes up and talks to Seth Rogen again, actually, at the end, and and the alien's like, a Viltrum leaving is weird. And Mark says, knowing that this is just a small part of it makes me feel a little better, which is like, that's a little weird, because isn't that what you were fighting against and what your dad was saying?
Yeah. I think that's meant to say, like, oh, there's other people that are worried about it too.
Yeah, I don't know. I took it as like maybe a little bit ominous. But
yeah.
Maybe that's just my pessimism. I don't know.
Okay. All right. Which like moment of like violence do you think got the most guttural reaction out of you?
Oh,
in terms of like, oh, that looks painful, or like that's nasty.
I think obviously that the first episode with the eye popping out and shit, or or like Batman getting like his head just explodes. But I think the one that stands out to me the absolute most, though, was the train scene in the last episode.
Oh, God. Like, that's something I can imagine giving people nightmares.
Yeah, where it just shows like a POV view of Mark, and his dad is holding him in front of this train. And he's just like hitting these people with his hands and just like killing all of them. It kind of reminds me of that scene in and excuse me for this, but it reminds me of Batman v Superman, where the building explodes and Superman's just sort of standing around in this blown up building. It reminds me of that, but like way more gruesome, like way more gruesome. But unlike Superman, he was actually trying to fight his way out of it, where Superman just sort of stood there awkwardly. And you're yeah. God. You think Superman would like try and save anyone who may have survived that blast, but whatever.
There was one. I think it was when Omni-Man found out that there was like all those agents spying on him in his house, and he like pushed one, and like his top half just slid across the kitchen counter.
Yeah. Or he like gets the gun and he puts it through his face.
Yeah, and there's the one. It was when Mahershala's character like fighting off all these goons, and he threw this guy into this other guy, and it like killed him instantly, like getting killed by your buddy. Yeah. But like not your buddy killing you, but like your buddy used to kill you.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal. And there's a little visual of that where like in the first episode where he kills the green chick, putting his hand through her face, and then grabs her and uses her as a shield against the water. Yeah.
And just her limbs.
Yeah, I feel like if they had a bigger budget, you probably would have seen her like start to deteriorate a bit. But I feel like maybe they just didn't have the budget to do that. Um, the gore and stuff I think was good. I don't think it was like overly done, like you were saying with Tarantino, like where it's almost like in Tarantino movies, it's almost comical. You know, it's like funny. It's like watching ketchup like explode. This one, it's definitely that gruesome, but like it doesn't feel comical. You're just like, damn. Like that whole last episode where like, you know, he's trying to save the lady in the building and then at the end he's just holding her arm and you're just like, oh my God. Or he saves the guy from the plane and he like sets him down. The guy's like,
I
thanks.
didn't think I was gonna make it. Then
yeah, he's like, what was the point? And just explodes his brain. You're just like, damn, dude.
If you want like a good medium between like the kind of gore and like its use of gore in Invincible and like Tarantino movies, Genndy Tartakovsky's Primal on HBO Max is like the happy medium where it shows all like borderline comical amounts of like gore, and it's in a way that's kind of embellished, but it's also like shows you the stakes of like, oh, like they have to survive this, or like they're fighting their way out of this.
There is a scene in The Boys, but it turns out to just be a dream sequence. But there is and this is a little spoiler for The Boys, but there's a scene in The Boys where he's given a press conference and he's like being pushed to his limit, and he just shoots his laser and kills this giant crowd of people. I may have seen
a clip of that where they're just mowed down.
Yeah,
like field.
Yeah, but it turns out to just be like a dream sequence. But it's like, damn, he can do that if he wanted. Anyway, Invincible.
Yeah, Invincible.
It's one hell of a show. I really liked it. I don't normally do ratings, so I'm not going to do a rating. I'd give it like a 9. I don't know. I really liked it. I liked it a lot. Like a 9 out of 10.
Yeah, my favorite superhero show of the year so far.
Yeah, I thought it was very, very good. If you haven't watched it, what the fuck are you doing watching this? But definitely go watch it. I'd love to hear what everyone else thinks, you know, in the comments down below. Like, subscribe, hit the bell or whatever you do. Follow the podcast, whatever. I don't know. Leave a good review on iTunes.
Comment your top 8 Invincible episodes down below.
Yeah, what's it? Ooh, this is a good one. I'll ask you this question. Who is your favorite character in the show?
Well, there's Omni-Man. I just really like
yeah,
everything about him, like his voice and like the whole dynamic with him and everything.
He's definitely.
But aside from him, maybe that is a good question. Maybe Robot. Like really just like his whole like kind of the latter part of his whole story of like him transferring his consciousness from his little potato sack body into his young man body. Like that whole scene kind of turned me around on him, where beforehand I was like, oh, what's he up to? Like why is he always lying? But like, no, he's trying to do this. Like he was just he wanted to do good and wanted to be a real boy.
Yeah, he is Pinocchio. I think my favorite character or characters are the clones. I really like the clones. I think they're interesting.
Yeah. There's like that whole story kind of turned me around on them too. Like you saw them more of their interactions, and I like the whole thing of like they purposely make it so none of them knows which one is the clone.
Yeah, yeah.
Make it like a dick measuring contest. Like if I do this, you have to admit that I'm the original.
And it kind of makes their like bickering back and forth a little bit more funny because you're just like, oh, okay, they're just fucking with each other. Like they both know that both of them are the clones or whatever. It doesn't matter. Yeah, I like them a lot. I also I really like Damien Darkblood, man. I liked him a lot.
Yeah.
He's just like go ahead. Sorry.
It's cool that's what I wanted to say. All right. it's cool that the show plays with like archetypes you've seen in like comics before, and it doesn't like it expects you to go along with it. Like we've seen characters like the Guardians of the Globe, like we know they're supposed to be surrogates for like the Flash and like Batman and Wonder Woman, and so it plays with a lot of these characters that are like archetypes and surrogates for characters we already know. So Damien Darkblood is meant to be like The Question or Rorschach kind of thing, or even Hellboy.
Spawn.
Just kind of roll one. Spawn, yeah. And there's the whole thing when the Immortal or just Immortal came back and you saw flashes of his backstory. Like, you know what his backstory is. Like it knows whoever's watching is kind of adept at like comic book logic that they can kind of piece together on their own, even though it's not important in that moment.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say too. Just like the fact that this show has something like a Damien Darkblood who is like from hell and like gets sent back to hell through like some weird shit, and the show doesn't explain it at all. It's just like, that's just part of the world, man. Or like the big monster that shows up at the end, and they're like, yeah, that's just a big monster that Omni-Man fought in the past. Like, this world is lived in. When we get into the story, this story's been going on for a while, you know, like everything that's happening, this has all been going on for a while. This is a lived-in world, and where we're jumping in is, things have already happened.
And I love stories like that like we don't have to see like the building blocks put together in order to like engage with the story. We can engage with the story in a world that we're becoming familiar with as we're seeing the story.
Yeah, and it doesn't feel lazy either, because it feels like if you were to ask a question like, what's up with that, they would have answers to it. It's just like, you don't need to know them. There are answers for it, but you don't need to know the answers. It doesn't really have to do with the story. Just know it's part of this world.
Like, they develop everything so well that like it develops answers for you, even though they don't anticipate you asking them or them needing to answer them.
Yeah, yeah. And also, like, even the side characters, like a character, like there's the sort of villain of the week, the one with Justin Roiland, where he gets turned into the cyborg evil guys. But like, those characters end up having more to do with the story in the future. Like, they are all part of the story. They're not just a villain of the week. They come back. They have impacts and ramifications to the story, and things that we saw in this season, I have a feeling will have an impact in the season 3 of this show. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And one more thing I thought about was I like it when there's like new superhero stuff, new characters and worlds and stuff that are developed outside of like the need for like a comic book universe like Marvel or DC. So stuff like Invincible or like My Hero Academia and everything, where it plays with superheroes, but not so much in a way that it's like satire, or something like Watchmen or The Boys, where it's like, oh, we're satirizing superheroes. While stuff like Invisible, My Hero Academia plays with the idea of superheroes and does the kind of superhero stories that haven't been done before.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because especially Watchmen. Watchmen is definitely just like a commentary on superhero culture, and they use Watchmen as more of a political statement. This is like there's always politics in media, always, but like but this seems more like your traditional sort of like comic book story, but it's not DC, it's not Marvel, it's
like thing. it's not politicizing superheroes more so than they already are innately, right. But it's doing kinds of political superhero stories that haven't been done before in like Marvel or DC.
Yeah, I think Robert Kirkman is a goddamn genius. He also did The Walking Dead famously. So dude is he's just killing it. I did hear like that they want to do like a live action version of this. Have you heard that? I
think they've been trying to get that to reality for a long time.
You think that'll happen? I mean, probably eventually, huh?
Eventually, but probably not right now since the show is doing so well.
Well, in COVID, you might want to just wait anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, but maybe in a couple years, because this actually might be what they need for a live action Invincible, because now people like know who Invincible is.
Yeah.
More than ever. This might be fun. Do you have anyone in particular that you would cast in your in your Invincible?
I mean, I just want J.K. Simmons in everything, and now he's kind of cemented himself as Omni-Man for me already.
Yeah, I don't think he could do the live action one though.
I mean, that's what computers are for.
Yeah, I guess like J.K. Simmons is a buff dude.
Yeah, he is.
He's fucking jacked, but he's also like 60 years old, 70 years old.
Yeah,
he's an old guy. I don't know. John Hamm, I think, would be really good as Omni-Man.
I think I saw someone do like
Well, John Hamm was in the show somewhere, but I couldn't place where he was. I saw on IMDb he's in the show, but I couldn't place it.
I think someone did like a art piece of like if either John Hamm or what's his nuts, it's dude with the bat from Walking Dead.
Oh yeah, Neiman or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm googling. We're gurgling, boys.
Either way, they would be cast like
guy in Walking Dead. Negan, which is played by I don't know. I don't know why it's so hard to find.
He was also the comedian in Watchmen.
Yeah, he's great. He also plays Thomas Wayne.
Plays Thomas Wayne for 2 seconds.
2 seconds, yeah.
But if they do live action Invincible, you know they'll be casting like
Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
That sounds right.
Yeah, Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
I knew it was a dude with 3 names. My mind wanted to tell me Harry Dean Stanton, but he's dead.
He would be a good Omni-Man. My only concern with him being in Invincible is that if he's going to play Invincible, they're going to bring in Zack Snyder to make this, and I don't want Zack Snyder to make Invincible.
Oh, no! You shouldn't have said that.
It's a better fit for him to make a fucking Invincible than Superman, though. I will say.
Yeah,
I feel like
he's kind of turning Superman into Omni-Man.
Yeah, Omni-Man kind of
shouldn't happen.
Superman does kind of feel like Omni-Man in those movies where you're just like, I don't know if Superman's a good guy in these movies. This fucking shit just blew up and he's just sitting there sad. He shouldn't be sad. He should be concerned about the loss of lives. Oh god, don't get me started.
We already did this podcast.
Don't get me started. Dude, Snyder doesn't understand Superman. Which is why he'd be perfect to do Omni-Man. Maybe Snyder could do a good Invincible movie. Now that I'm thinking about it. Shit, I don't know.
Maybe.
Fuck.
But I'd say it'd be already too familiar territory with him. He's done like superheroes legit before, and he's done like satirized superheroes before with Watchmen.
Yeah, and he's already done Superman, so it'd be weird to bring the guy who did Superman to do the knockoff Superman.
Yeah,
be weird. Yeah, I think John Hamm would be good. That's all I got. Hugh Jackman could be Immortal.
Ooh, okay.
That's my pick.
I thought you were going to say. Yeah, that fits.
Yeah,
I mean, because like I kind of read like Wolverine vibes from Immortal anyway.
Yeah. He's got like he's Wolverine cross Superman is what I got from Immortal.
I love that ship. I love that fan fiction.
Oh god.
I mean, whatever whatever they would do to each other, it would feel good, and they would heal from it.
No, it hurts. It hurts him. It hurts him just to bring out the claws, man.
But it's not gonna hurt Superman.
Fucking, oh my, what would happen? All right. So, okay. Fucking, Wolverine's got, the claws. He's got the claws. All right. If he were to claw Superman, would his claws break or would he cut Superman?
I think at most they would kind of like dig into Superman a little bit. But I think mostly what would happen is that the claws wouldn't break. They would just kind of like be pushed back more into his skeleton, into his arm.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I have a question though, okay?
Yes.
This is an important question.
Okay. This is important.
Deadpool, right?
Uh-oh.
He regenerates. That's like his thing.
Yeah. Yes.
If Deadpool was circumcised, like already, before it happened, when the like explosion or whatever happens that turned him into Deadpool happened, is he now uncircumcised again?
I think what it would be is that he would become like he would regenerate from the point of the explosion.
Okay. That's the rule.
So like that's what I'm thinking. Like
that would make sense because he's all scarred and shit. Yeah.
Yeah. However it was when it happened, that's what he regenerates back to.
So he'd remain.
Jake, he does not grow back his foreskin.
He would remain circumcised. That's assuming that he was circumcised, obviously.
Yes.
And, fucking, Civil War boy, Wolverine, he's probably not circumcised, so.
Now, if Deadpool got his dick cut clean off and it were to grow back, maybe the foreskin would come back.
See, that's a good question. But when he's blown up in the past and he's been just brain matter, he comes back and he's still got the scarred up face. So,
can the thumbnail for this video just be like Deadpool's crotch with a big red arrow pointed to it?
with Omni-Man standing in the back. Or it's just a picture of Omni-Man standing like this, but with Deadpool's crotch, and we circle the crotch.
I can whip that up.
Yeah.
Photoshop that together.
If you want to make the thumbnail for this one, because you might be more skilled with me in Photoshop. I'm more than down. Anyway, Invincible, great show. I loved it. I can't wait for season 2. I'm very happy that we get 2 more seasons of this show.
Yeah. Me too.
Subscribe, like, all that stuff.
Comment. Grow back your foreskin.